We don't see somebody in a very comfortable position wanting to test himself, so when it happens, it comes as a huge surprise. Shane McMahon at face value had no reason to leave WWE, an empire his family built. Shane was a part of the most powerful family in wrestling history, and he had his position in the company for life. Shane came up as a referee and found a position in the back before becoming a full-fledged character on the roster. Shane at times captivated with his incredible spots. He also knew how to play the heel role all too well and gave his father value when it comes to the corporation and the following storylines. The boy wonder, a spoiled kid who didn't know how easy he had it. Sometimes he failed upwards and other times he succeeded dying. Regardless, Shane McMahon was determined to grab your attention in every one of his stories. In the back, he seemed like his place was slipping as it felt like he was going to be the heir apparent to the throne, but then Triple H told him to take a hike. It's weird how things were, but I think Shane would have had a mind like his father. Not in these type of storylines, what the hell is this, but the way about doing business. He was very forward thinking, wanting to purchase Pride FC and UFC, which would have been great investments. I don't think UFC would have turned into the success that it did with Zuffa and Dana White, but it goes to show that he had an eye for business. ECW on WWE.com was another concept he had, which was how Velocity, Heat, and later on NXT would air. But it felt like whatever Shane pushed for would end up being declined and turned down, and he had plenty of ideas. And seeing UFC turn into an international phenomenon when he had previously envisioned the same result but with himself at the helm was infuriating. And Shane's influence was minimized until October of 2009 when he announced he was resigning from his position of Executive Vice President of Global Media. It was a huge shock, but one that doesn't seem like one if you read beyond the headline. He wasn't growing in his role in the company and decided to go elsewhere. If you watched any part of the McMahon documentary, you could also see Shane fought hard for his father's love, but it almost never felt enough. Shane had a blueprint of what NXT was later on, and maybe a certain someone was inspired by it. McMahon, upon his departure, dabbled his hands into the tech industry, sporting industry, and you would rarely hear about him. He was around, obviously, but living a completely different life to what he was previously, and many fans were interested in seeing a Shane McMahon return, but there was never a real reason for it, although he was a McMahon, so he could just come anytime. But then it came. The WWE suffered a huge injury plague towards the end of 2015. Cesaro, Seth Rollins, John Cena, Sting, Randy Orton, all of these men were sidelined and for the most part were going to feature in big matches at WrestleMania. So the door opened for a Shane McMahon return. On the February 22nd, 2016 episode of Raw, Mr. McMahon came out to hand an award of excellence to somebody. He ended up giving the Legacy Award to his own daughter, Stephanie. The fans in Detroit were booing like crazy, and just as she was about to do a Triple H RP and cut a long-ass promo, Shane McMahon interrupted and made his return after nearly 7 years. This moment was pretty crazy back in 2016. If I recall, I heard rumblings on the internet, but to see it actually go down was a cool thing. It was from out of nowhere and in some ways much needed with WrestleMania lacking the star power. The fans are very excited to see him. His father was going in for a PR hug, but the son wasn't interested. This is how it goes down in real life, but in the opposite roles. The return is because Shane didn't think that Stephanie deserved such an award and wanted to do things in public. He wasn't happy about Triple H and Stephanie running WWE into the ground, and his sister responded by calling him a quitter, but Shane insinuated that there's some information between himself and his father that is unbeknownst to her. They didn't straight up say, but it would become a great meme of 2016, which was the lockbox. Shane apparently saved his father, he cut a deal with him, and also added that while he left, he still had a place in line. Shane's return to WWE was about legacy. He believed that money wasn't a factor in his return, and if anything, it was about ensuring his legacy in the family's future. Then he dropped the big announcement. He wanted control of Monday Night Raw. His father was up for the task, but he had to face somebody in the match at WrestleMania, The Undertaker. Then Vince mentioned the lockbox, which we still don't know much about, and he also made it a Hell in a Cell match. Insanity. The roster was so depleted that they had to call Shane O'Mac, and they made this grand story out of it. While Undertaker was up for a challenge, he wasn't going to allow for Vince to boss him around and treat him like a henchman. He also assured him that his actions will be on Vince's hands. The story was also hyping this lockbox that nobody knows about. It was hyped up like crazy, but the heart of the story was about Vince no longer valuing his son and seeing him as an enemy of the family. It's also a bit telling for the McMahon documentary. Here, Vince was talking about how Shane never saw his father as a failure and seeing somebody who was invincible and infallible, unlike him. He's just Vince McMahon's son. Unfortunately, we were subjected to the Shane McMahon style punches, which is always a terrible thing to see. For as much as I enjoyed his matches from the 2000s and some for this era, I always hated the punches. This is a cliche promo from Shane. He had courage and heart, but I almost felt like he had to convince himself that he will beat The Undertaker. Undertaker, on the other hand, didn't need to talk much about him. This moron called him Vince's bitch, and this made me laugh like crazy. Father throwing his son to The Undertaker. Vince also called Undertaker his bitch casually, and Shane McMahon's motivations, meanwhile, were driven from controlling Monday Night Raw. A yearning for a successful legacy, and most importantly, proving his father wrong. Undertaker felt great offense about Shane talking about his legacy, and he didn't like this at all. Shane said that Undertaker's legacy died 2 years ago. They called each other bitches like bratty girls, and Shane went on the attack. This was an intense battle that also highlighted Shane's strategy heading into WrestleMania, a tactic of throwing balls to the wall and going all out even if it meant that his own body would be sacrificed, because after all, it would take the ultimate sacrifice to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. It felt like 2003 again, seeing him going for a leap of faith through the announce table. Honestly, this was the best way to build the storyline. If you place Undertaker and Shane, this was probably the best way to do it. It really established Shane's character again as a daredevil who has no worries and fears about his own self. In a affair with multiple layers, Shane McMahon craving the prize of setting a complete legacy for himself, his return to WWE seen as a family objective, not just for himself of course, a goal of achieving continued success for the McMahon family, feeling that Stephanie and Triple H didn't do the best in maintaining the excellent legacy that Vince and Jane Vince Jr. had made, but it wasn't the only reason. He wanted to prove to his father that he was as successful as he said he was, and he didn't have to do it his father's way. For The Undertaker, it's a taste of WrestleMania, as if WrestleMania reminds him that he's still alive in the wake of his legacy taking a massive hit 2 years earlier, and there was plenty of reasons for him to keep fighting as Vince threatened to make this his last WrestleMania if he loses. Shane brought out his 3 sons to the entrance to this match. Now watching this match when WrestleMania 32 happened, it was very dull and dragged out far too much. I guess Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania commands that length, but it really should have been shorter and would have told the story perfectly. Shane realizing he's in there with The Undertaker who had far too much intensity and aggression. Shane obviously brought that submission aspect that he's known for from his late 10s run, but he wasn't presented as some superhuman. He did seem strong and had plenty of resolve though. He wrestled very scrappy and rugged, which is natural seeing as he isn't a professional wrestler. Shane's offense in this match revolved around the idea of turning into an unpredictable fight. As a regular fight, Undertaker clears him like crazy, and that advantage would open just as he opened the cell. Shane was fighting with everything he had, and watching this match, you want to say the same for The Undertaker, and in life, hard gets you far. For Shane, it was working. This radical approach of risking his own life was working to fruition, but he thought far ahead and devised a moment that was far too much for his own good. This guy jumped off this cell. I don't know if he had Jeff Hardy's music playing in his own mind, or better yet his own, but he was now down on the ground achieving absolutely nothing but lose the match for himself. Undertaker wrapped it up but had a look of respect on his face for Shane's efforts. He dropped him with the tombstone pile driver and the lockbox was going to be in Vince's possession. I don't understand this lockbox. Was he caught at Epstein's Island and blackmailed? I don't even know what I'm saying. One thing for certain is that this match should have been shorter because Shane put in a great performance. Undertaker wasn't bad here. It's just that this battle required less time than what it had because that time almost forces it to be an epic that it has no chance of being. Shane had such a great performance that WWE forgot the story and had Shane run Raw the next night anyways. His father had plenty of respect for his performance. This ended up being the storyline. It looked like it would develop to be something huge and possibly a story of the summer. WWE was promoting the new era like crazy. Now I thought I was lying to myself, but I recall a big rumor at the time and it felt like it was going to come to fruition because there was a show advertised for May 23rd, 2016 titled WWE vs. Monday Night Raw. There was some thought that this was based on the Shane and Stephanie power trip, but it was probably some Ticketmaster guy forgetting that WWE can't face itself like it's the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. The story didn't go anywhere though, and the father gave both of his kids control of the WWE. They both had the chance to run Raw, and this of course would lead to the brand split. The return of the brand split was much needed at the time, seeing as WWE had an incredible roster. It was the most stacked roster we had seen in years, and WWE desperately needed something fresh and different. I like the mixed roster thing, but with the way the booking was going at the time, it was better off bringing back the brand split. Both McMahons were placed in the role of commissioner for Raw and SmackDown. Shane got SmackDown and made Daniel Bryan the general manager. Bryan in real life wasn't too happy about being in that role, seeing as he craved wrestling more than SpongeBob craved water in this scene, but it was done. A new era dawned upon the WWE, and for SmackDown it was an uneventful draft, but they got the better deal in the long run just on the basis of being 2 hours long. SmackDown did a way better job of being an engaging show that made every segment interesting. I used to skip through Raw, but with SmackDown, the remote was never touched. The show flowed so well, and it's one of the best examples of pacing a show. WWE hasn't had a show paced as well as SmackDown in 2016 and 17 since then. Shane was just watching Bryan book the show and really got involved in the stories. It was bound to end though, because McMahon was always a guy they used for the big stories. And a great opportunity. Great for Shane McMahon. Not so great for the audience, although if you like seeing Shane reach a point where his brain is thrown left and right, this is a great moment for you. This is a tease. The SummerSlam in Brooklyn, the highly anticipated battle of the summer, one of the most hyped matches in WWE history, Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar. A story that was 14 years in the making. Both men shared 16 world championships between them then, now it's 24. While the match ended up being disappointing and only served to remind you that Brock Lesnar is dangerous, Brock bitched poor Orton and Shane intervened, looking out for his guy. Brock didn't give a damn and they did that whole Shane Brave thing that he's known for from this time period. Brock dropped him and Heyman shouting like Brock F5'd Moses or something, and this was strongly rumored to be the WrestleMania 33 match. Not Moses and Brock because Brock would suffer whiplash from touching the damn staff, but Shane and Brock. Shane and Brock doesn't sound like a good match because it has to be a squash. Even if Shane fights for his life, the appeal of that match is to see him thrown around, but we all know that they're gonna throw some drama around to make it seem like Brock didn't get lucky to win the match. And I'm very glad they signed Goldberg because a WrestleMania match between those two wouldn't have been pleasant. Maybe some aspects of it, but then again, if this means AJ Styles and John Cena face off for the WWE Championship, I'm looking for a time machine like Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to live with. Shane continued being the commissioner and he did almost beat up Dean Ambrose for being a comedy genius, but other than that, not much. He was back for Survivor Series as a member of Team SmackDown. It was once again a great performance from Shane, but the match as a whole was wonderful, something that I'll never forget watching for the first time. It was such an incredible watch because all of these stories came to a head. The Owens and Jericho drama, AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose hating each other's guts, the Shield for a moment were on the same page, the Wyatt family seeing in real time that Orton was a valuable asset. It's a modern classic, and no matter how many matches come in the near future, this one will always be undeniable. Team SmackDown barely won after Shane died and Randy Orton was a sacrifice for Bray Wyatt. Now, did it take too long for Shane McMahon's next feud to begin? He ended up feuding with AJ Styles shortly after the Royal Rumble. Styles had a world-class 2016 and one of the best years a professional wrestler ever had. Styles was so far away in 2016 that it wasn't debatable. So in some ways, this was a tremendous demotion, but from another perspective, randoms don't work with a McMahon at WrestleMania. Styles had won over Vince McMahon in the fastest time. He earned that respect and just did what he did before going to WWE. It's something that further cements Styles as a top 20 wrestler ever for me. He came in being treated like an overrated guy scared of WWE, but then it turns out WWE was his dog, or to put it more emphatically, his bitch. They couldn't wait to put the title on him. Personal experience, I was actually interested in this feud because it meant Styles had a lot of TV time. AJ Styles felt that he was robbed out of a WWE Championship opportunity as he had the title shot initially, but then Randy Orton changed his mind and won it away from AJ Styles. There was a great sense of bitterness and anger for Styles over being denied the WWE Championship opportunity at WrestleMania 33. It was a culmination of months of hurdles and struggles. John Cena doesn't need to do all that to get a chance. He could just go and tell his brother-in-law that he wants a title shot. That's why Styles was upset. Styles acknowledged that he lost to Cena, but he was still looking for his rematch. Triple threat and an elimination chamber match were what he got. Styles didn't feel that he was valued for being a guy that put SmackDown Live on the map. There was no match for WrestleMania, so he wanted to do something bad to Shane McMahon. There's a lot of aggression AJ Styles showed here. I like that a lot because it felt like he was genuinely angry that he was not on the WrestleMania card. Shane stuck around despite getting thrown into a car window, and he told AJ Styles that he's got an opponent for WrestleMania now. The Styles tried to justify his actions and acknowledged that he did too much as it relates to the attack last week. AJ Styles wanted to apologize, but Shane's shoot fists got in the way. There's something about this dive that the others don't have. It felt like Shane desperately wanted to end AJ Styles here. They had one final confrontation before WrestleMania, which signaled the face turn was coming for AJ Styles. There was so much respect from Shane and the fans themselves. Styles was assuring Shane that no ladders or tables would save him here. WrestleMania 33 had an incredible vibe to it, and it's a show that has a lot of goodwill from me. This one surprisingly turned out to be a match that many consider the best on the show, and for good reason. Styles could do no wrong at this point in his career. His talent is far greater than the entire roster, and Styles did well enough in this match, but he was affected by the street fight rules. It gave Shane more freedom to do whatever he wanted. This was much tighter and more effective than the Hell in a Cell match. They obviously did the same story of Shane sacrificing everything to get a chance at beating AJ Styles, but it was good. It was one of the best versions of that story. He had a damn shooting star press like it was a random mid-carder and not a McMahon. AJ Styles willed himself to victory, and it was a very good one. I understand that WrestleMania 33 and AJ Styles should have been bigger, but it's not so bad after all. It's just strange how his best WrestleMania match was with Shane McMahon, but then again, he is the best in the world, so it shouldn't come off as a shock. This battle earned respect from AJ Styles so much that he wanted to stay on SmackDown Live, and there's the Styles face turn. Shane remained a background fixture of SmackDown until the inevitable drama occurred. Kevin Owens moved to SmackDown, a part of the Superstar shakeup, and immediately became the face of America. This storyline was bad and felt like something far out even for Kevin Owens. I just don't think it represented his identity as well as it should have. AJ Styles and Kevin Owens dragged Shane into their drama. SummerSlam proved to be the start of what would be a long feud between the face of America and the SmackDown commissioner. Shane was the special referee in this battle between Styles and Owens for the United States Championship. It got heated with Owens putting his hands on Shane, having a pinfall of his cancelled, and in the end, McMahon technically cost Kevin Owens the United States Championship. Owens had validity in his claims, seeing as the referee's decision wasn't reversed when he got screwed weeks ago. He gave him another match, but with Baron Corbin as the referee. It was his last chance too. Corbin had enough of the drama, and Shane decided to overrule a moment which once again cost Kevin Owens the title. Shane had enough of Owens' complaining. At this point, he was going to continue. So Owens lashed out on his friend Sami Zayn by officiating a match and dropping him with a pop-up powerbomb. I don't know what's worse, losing a match or losing a match to 2017, or for that matter, any year in English, but that's what happened to Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens was still on this and attacked Shane's character, thinking he wanted to impress his family by jumping off things and even surviving a helicopter crash, which was unfortunate because his family would have been better off without him. He assaulted him and Owens threatened legal action. As a result of his actions, Shane McMahon got suspended. This got so bad that Mr. McMahon returned to deal with this situation. What followed was one of the most famous segments in SmackDown's recent recent history. Owens was convinced that he was going to take over SmackDown and rename it to the Kevin Owens Show. It was basically a formality to him. Owens thought he was in control, believing that McMahon was intimidated by him, and McMahon thought he was a bitch and hiding his true feelings over this matter, seeing as Shane actually kicked his ass. Not because Owens listens to authority, he's actually scared of Shane McMahon. He straight up said that the laws of the land are written for people like him, and some fans were cheering. I'm like, okay. He even said he'll drag the lawsuit until Owens is bankrupt. As a result of this drama between Shane and Kevin Owens, he booked Hell in a Cell. He wanted Vince's word that he would allow for him to do whatever he wanted to a McMahon. Beat him senseless, and Owens hit this crazy ass headbutt on Vince and made him look like a lunatic, or for the lack of a better term, nails. This old guy was crazy, still is of course, but that headbutt had no protection to it. Owens topped all of this with a frog splash. Great moment. This feud between Shane and Kevin Owens was one of the most intense feuds of 2017. Both men had hatred far beyond what one could comprehend. Kevin Owens casually dropped him with a powerbomb and went to the ring and cut a promo. Owens said he was throwing Shane off the cell and there was no getting back up this time. Shane was broken and Owens was motivating him to show that he's a McMahon. The brawl was great and scrappy. Owens here looked like he legitimately hated Shane, and they didn't go overboard with Shane making a comeback. None of that was here. Okay, another Hell in a Cell match for Shane McMahon. This one was actually better than WrestleMania. I remember zoning out with wrestling in 2017. I kept up with it from YouTube, so there was a time I didn't watch any current WWE. I didn't watch this match until March of 2018, and I actually enjoyed it. It made good on the build, but also unfortunately continued to drag the feud, which was absolutely unnecessary. It follows the same idea, of course, being a match where Shane has to turn into a fight. He uses that odd MMA style too, but it all comes together anyways. Kevin Owens put on his working boots here, and the man was going all out, and Shane McMahon surely wasn't going to stop him. If anything, he was going to match it. What helps the cell match compared to WrestleMania is that they moved faster. Now, Shane was always like Michael Schofield in the cell, except it didn't take what was essentially rocket science to get out. Owens was too much of a coward. He was too logical for his own good and didn't want to risk himself despite the hatred coming into his head. These spots here are hype. They got me jumping like a monkey because they perfectly captured the feud for a moment. Forget that selling the spots. Just this moment here is enough to sell me on the feud. This match here was being sold on the possibility of tragedy, and it was high drama and high emotions, seeing these two on top of the cell and just getting random ideas pop up in their mind. Shane almost had Owens down after this spot, which looked rough, but ended up pulling a Shane McMahon. He's descending, he's about to drop with the most dangerous elbow in WWE history, but then Sami Zayn pulled him from out of nowhere and saved his rival. He saved them from disaster, and this led to the Owens win. Very dramatic match. It did go a bit long, but there's not many that are going to get this much out of Shane McMahon at the time. These two were united, but the feud would be put on hold as Survivor Series was coming up. SmackDown versus Raw, and everyone is loyal to their own show because November was coming up. I didn't like this iteration of it because it felt manufactured and also had some sort of power story involving Triple H. It didn't need to be that at all. The match at Survivor Series was one I liked more than most, but it really was all over the place and seemed to signal that there's a story beyond Raw and SmackDown, when there wasn't. Shane did feature in the match, but along with his team fell short to Raw. But back to Owens and Zayn. They got involved in the match and nearly cost SmackDown the match. They ended up losing anyways. Shane didn't forget about them. They thought they were overlooked and tried to get on the good side of the GM by wearing shirts saying yup. Shane got them in a match against Orton and Nakamura. He lost his patience with them, handcuffed them, and even told them that if they lose the match that he officiates, they will be fired from SmackDown Live. That match had more drama coming out of it, with Daniel Bryan looking out for his old friends and basically giving them the win with a fast count. It felt like they were teasing a Daniel Bryan heel turn. There had been some conflict between Shane and Bryan for a bit, and I felt like that was going to continue to intensify. He was heavily favoring them, giving them a WWE Championship opportunity against AJ Styles, and Shane McMahon believed that Bryan had lost a plot as general manager. He had too much trust in those two that it was affecting his judgment. Shane was watching them closely, and when they accidentally struck him, he made sure to cost them the WWE Championship. Both had the match won, and he didn't give a damn. He was happier than AJ Styles to see him win, so they tried killing him. They followed up with Daniel Bryan after he announced his in-ring return and fired them for their actions. When you think about it, these two are low-key demons, you know? People don't really talk about it, but they turned one of the most joyous days for a wrestler into a nightmare. They sent him back to the shelf before he fully got off the shelf. This forced Shane and Bryan to team up and get it together in their battle against Owens and Zayn. WrestleMania New Orleans. The place Bryan experienced a professional and career high was the site of his return to the squared circle. Owens and Zayn continued to provoke their families in the lead up to the match. WrestleMania 34. Man, the day of the show was wonderful for me. I remember it very well, but even then there was a lot of anticipation for what was supposed to be a slam dunk WrestleMania. It turned out to be terrible and a huge letdown. For this tag team match, it wasn't bad at all, but the main story was about Daniel Bryan. This was a textbook tag team match, except this time they incorporated the WrestleMania 30 story with Bryan being at a huge disadvantage. The Yes movement though guided him back into it and they scored the victory. It's a simple tag team match with the attraction being Daniel Bryan. Shane wasn't bad here, but his strong suit is clearly the street fight matches. He disappeared after WrestleMania 34. Paige was made the SmackDown general manager after Bryan decided to return to the squared circle, and Shane wasn't around much because he suffered from diverticulitis. This had been revealed right before WrestleMania 34. He returned on the 1000th episode of SmackDown in October, and what an underwhelming show that was. McMahon's appearance this time around would would lead to his most notorious run. At the time, WWE hyped up a small tournament and tried making it into a big deal. The WWE World Cup. This was originally going to involve John Cena, but he had 99 PR and refused to go to Saudi Arabia due to the murder of a journalist. Shane wasn't featured in the tournament, but he closely observed it. The Miz and Dolph Ziggler ended up being the final, and at this point I'm like, forget the World Cup, this is a Europa League final. Miz got hurt during the match, and Shane, seeing that a forfeit was on the cards, decided to do something brave, yet incredibly selfish. The best in the world wasn't going to be determined by a forfeit, so he decided to enter the match. Michael Cole wasn't even a heel and complained about Shane using his authority. He ended up winning the match and celebrated like he was the actual best. He did what he had to do to get the trophy to SmackDown Live, but a story was building here, and the moment Shane got a taste of gold, his whole character transformed. At first, he was humble and said it wasn't the best. The Miz was limping, but still acknowledged Shane as the best in the world and said that 2/3 of that trophy is his. Miz had sacrificed his job and risk to getting fired to win the trophy. The Miz started sucking up to him and wanting to become a tag team with the commissioner. The best team in the world was off to a bad start. The Miz was trying his best to get Shane to be on his side as a tag team partner, and they actually started doing something for once. Miz wanted the team to be official, and while Shane was hesitant, he was in. This attire on Shane is absurd. They were ready to go after the tag titles. Miz threw a birthday party, Shane wanted a present from Miz, which was a match against Sheamus, and he went at it. This led to a coast to cake moment. In a not so surprising moment, Shane McMahon and The Miz won the titles. Miz had so much respect for Shane, he thought that Shane was the reason everyone loved him, because at this point Miz was leaning towards being a face. The Usos were next in line for the titles. They won the titles at Elimination Chamber, but Miz didn't lose faith. He apologized to Shane for the loss, but started motivating him for a second try. Their second try at Fastlane proved to be enough for Shane McMahon. This show was in Cleveland, so Miz was very over. He had knee issues and almost scored the victory, but the Usos stole the win. So Shane obliterated Miz in front of his father, and this was a much needed heel turn, but as time went on, it became one of the worst decisions of the year. Shane had enough of the Miz. He finally embraced himself as being the best in the world and had the announcer calling him the best like it's WrestleMania. He said he had enough of doing things for others, and with regards to being the best, he was born that way. Shane remembered that he was boss and said he wanted a match against him at WrestleMania. The Miz completed his face turn the following week by mentioning his shortcomings and how he sacrificed relationships throughout the years. He said that this was all to make his dad proud, and after hearing him say that he loved him, it meant everything to him. Miz couldn't believe people told him to watch himself when he tried teaming up with Shane McMahon. He said that Shane, just like his father, is rotten to the core. He's the worst in the world. Miz said that he was always told that he's average when he was young, but he overcame those doubts to become the most must-see WWE champion of all time. He believes hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard enough. All of this, he had to earn it. The fans chanted, "You deserve it," and this was a great promo. And to pause for a moment, I'm never of the belief that Miz couldn't work as a face. Early on, that is the case, but here, it's an entirely different story. He had a great background that they finally decided to put use of. And to say this for a moment, but the WWE are inept morons incapable of booking themselves out of a cardboard box. This run was so easy to do. The Miz was much more convincing as a face in 2019 than he was in 2012. He has experience. You see his family more often now, which makes him more relatable, and he's way more likable than the rich Shane McMahon. I'm a strong defender of a face version of Miz, but I just dislike how they didn't put effort in him the moment they really needed to, because he was good in 16, he was good in 17, he was good in 18, but the one time they needed him to push him to the very top once again, they just decided, you know what, best in the world better. And Miz isn't even my favorite wrestler or anything like that. I think he's average in ring, but he had a lot of fire as a character in those 3 years, and I just think it's a huge missed opportunity for them to not capitalize on. Miz wanted Shane in a false count anywhere match at WrestleMania. Shane brought out the catering Avengers and started talking nonsense. Shane started talking in a slower way, and his cadence was very different to what you were used to. He regret not beating up his father, the Miz's father, for making the biggest mistake by impregnating his mother. Miz found a way to overcome the catering Avengers, and then he went through hell and beat Sanity 3-on-1 with Shane McMahon watching on with a smile. Their match at WrestleMania 35 wasn't that bad. Shane was spamming the best in the world announcement, and it was hilarious. This match was a game of cat and mouse. Shane was one step ahead of the Miz throughout this one. He whooped his ass to the point where Miz's father got involved and suffered a legitimate rib injury. This moment got a lot of heat from the crowd. Miz turned into a monster here. He overwhelmed McMahon and bitched him. Just when it seemed like the match was heating up, Shane kicked out of a skull-crushing finale on the steel, and then the big spot came with Miz hitting a superplex from the platform, but it ended up being Shane who won. And this match was a huge mistake. As a character, Shane had his best match in years. He was such a great heel, goading the Miz, getting himself out of tough situations. The issue, though, is that the Miz was built up as this face who was fighting for his family, and they decided to push it to the side for a story nobody asked for. The best in the world took great offense to Roman Reigns dropping his father with a Superman punch and decided to go after him. Thus began one of the worst feuds of 2019. Roman was being eased in, and instead of bringing some quality to allow him to shine as a face, they gave him the best in the world. Shane still dealt with The Miz on the side. He was getting the upper hand on him for the most part, and this steel cage match was horrific. It was some point where they just prioritized Shane's story more than the WWE champion Kofi Kingston. It was the biggest thing on SmackDown at some point, and WWE refused to realize why it was hated. The cage match was SummerSlam 2025 steel cage match bad, and this was a frustrating one to watch because you see this Miz face run die in real time. Shane McMahon associated with Elias and eventually Drew McIntyre. The faction was called the Channel Changers. Shane was just pissing off Roman, doing the best in the world thing 3 times a show, and Super Showdown 2019 is an event associated with the worst Shane McMahon match probably ever. I don't think we need to mention the punches here. This guy was dominating Roman Reigns for portions of the match, which is so stupid. His work was uninspiring and also lacked any identity. With WrestleMania, that was the best he looked as a heel because there was some intense story. Here, it was boring, but WWE proceeded to drag this out by having him beat Roman Reigns. He was running around with a wild card rule, doing whatever he saw fit, and Shane was still on Roman. The feud continued after Super Showdown as Shane was still on Roman, but it ended up backfiring in a big way at Stomping Grounds with a big dog overcoming Drew McIntyre. To make matters worse, The Undertaker got involved. Shane didn't like anything he was seeing, so he lashed out on Miz, made his introduction longer with Greg Hamilton damn near dying for air. I mean, Mike Rome sounded like he came from hell.
The best in the world! Yikes.
He was just angry all around. Now, Undertaker needed to close his legacy with dignity. His last match was horrific and almost a black mark on his career. Kevin Owens once again got on Shane McMahon's radar. Ahead of Extreme Rules, he invited McIntyre and McMahon to a show. Owens slightly threw jabs at them, telling them that they're afraid of The Undertaker, and Owens didn't want to comply with McMahon's requests to be a good boy and be an interviewer. Then Dolph Ziggler interrupted and Owens ripped into him like crazy, making him seem like a thing of the past. Just get over it. Promos like these are the reason why I prefer a face Kevin Owens. Ziggler said he should go and win hot dog eating contests, so he responded saying he would win hot dog contests, which is more than you could say for wrestling matches. Owens completed his face turn later that night, and it's important to mention for what follows. Extreme Rules 2019 was a much needed night for The Undertaker. The battle was very entertaining and something Undertaker could have looked back on proudly. This was such a fun match. It felt like 2 superheroes with Undertaker and Roman Reigns teaming up and wreaking havoc. This was one of the most entertaining matches from Shane's return run as it was exciting and booked on the strengths of all 4 men. This moment with Roman coming to the rescue was the best part of the match, and then the tombstone from The Undertaker for the victory. This feud as a whole wasn't good, but it ended well with this match. Kevin Owens meanwhile had enough of Shane McMahon. He made mention at the time the McMahons claimed they were listening to the fans, but since then he's gotten more power and TV time. Shane just came out to cut his mic and left. He acted like he was reasonable and he would listen to criticism, but it wasn't true. Owens said he didn't work for Shane, he worked for WWE, but that didn't matter to Shane because he's a part of the family. He kicked him out in the building right before he had a town meeting, so Owens retaliated with a stunner, and Shane sold this so well. He booked him in a lumberjack match against Ziggler, who didn't win of course because it's 2019 Ziggler. Shane gets involved, takes another stunner, and Owens ran out of there. He did very well with Owens' face turn. It was fresh and actually had direction, unlike his first one earlier in the year. Kevin Owens decided to challenge Shane McMahon to a match at SummerSlam and said he'd leave WWE if he lost, and that was enough for him to accept. Shane was calm and a bit confident, seeing as any strange situation would give him the win, whether it's Owens losing normally, losing by countout, or disqualification. Shane McMahon proved that he had what it takes to win. Obviously it wouldn't be fair. Shane was messing with the rules and made Elias a special enforcer. This was entertaining. It wasn't that good, but they brought a lot of drama. Owens could care less about the rules and even cheated to win, beyond the ref's back of course. Decent match. I liked that way more than Shane's other matches, and the reason why is because others were a waste of time. This one was just like 9 minutes and it was straightforward, and in addition we didn't see him dominate the match like he did with Roman Reigns. That was so stupid. Shane retaliated in the way he would. He fined Kevin Owens $100,000 for his actions at SummerSlam, and KO was owning him in every segment. Here he won't take somebody who was in the Mean Street Posse series. He said Shane didn't know what it's like to be a man, and Shane refused to reconsider the fine. Same story the following week. McMahon though made it seem like he was attentive to Owens' issues initially, but then he screwed him out of the King of the Ring tournament. With Elias suffering an ankle injury, Shane McMahon decided to replace him in the tournament. He gave Owens a chance to do right by being the special referee. Owens quickly screwed him when he had the chance, and since he could do whatever he wanted, Shane restarted the match. Owens was timid this time around, seeing as Shane was threatening his job, and McMahon screwed himself over, leading to the victory for Chad Gable. Shane had enough of this and fired him. It didn't take long for Kevin Owens to retaliate by serving Shane McMahon with a lawsuit and deciding to hang out in the crowd. Owens filed a wrongful termination lawsuit, which came with the possibility of Kevin Owens being awarded $25 million. He said that this was more than money. He wanted Shane fired. The lawsuit seemed to have a lot of space in McMahon's mind. Shane gave him 2 options the following week: either lose all his money or he could accept his offer to drop the lawsuit, and in turn he'll take back the $100K in reinstatement. Owens said it was more than that. He couldn't stand Shane being in that locker room with them, and to put it simply, he wanted him fired. So Owens challenged him to one more match. If he loses, he stays fired and he'll drop the lawsuit, but if Owens wins, Shane is gone from WWE. The catch is a ladder match, and it was on. SmackDown on Fox was the night for this ladder match, and Los Angeles was abuzz for this highly anticipated show. The issue with this match is the commercial. Other than that, I don't really have an issue with this one. They got a lot out of it in such a short time, which is good to see, and Owens basically killed Shane and retrieved the briefcase to win the match and send Shane McMahon packing. He added insult to injury and celebrated with relief radiating from his face. We can't say that this didn't turn into a bad run. Shane had the worst kind of heat, and it doesn't look as bad now, but at one point I legitimately believed that he would win the WWE Championship from Kofi Kingston. He had some good matches here, but they had to move a lot of parts to involve him. There was some good. I actually liked the Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania more than I did previously. His performances in the big matches were not that bad, but his heel turn was rough. On the other side, there was no issue with him as a character. He actually played the best in the world well, but again, they gave him too much here to the point where a moment like Kevin Owens getting rid of him should feel big, but it wasn't. One thing that I also learned is that his feud with Kevin Owens wasn't bad at all. Owens brought it in every segment. Shane himself was a good heel, but it was fatigue. We seen too much of him, and I couldn't find much to dislike about their 2019 feud, but Shane's overexposure clouded my judgment of the story. None of their matches were bad. Owens was a good face here, and obviously it's similar to the Austin and Vince story, but both guys here did well in their roles. It's way better than the 2017 feud, although that has the benefit of a Shane McMahon we're not tired of seeing. So all in all, he basically overstayed his welcome. He did come back later on, but I just wanted to cover this run because it was more linear and connected. So yeah. Alright, what you guys think of Shane McMahon's return? Please comment down below, and that's for this video. Make sure you hit the leap of faith on the like button and perhaps the coast to coast on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.